Hello and welcome, everyone. Just give us one moment while we put up our cameras here. All right. So hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Cooking Connected with Cooking Matters Minnesota, and the University of Minnesota Extension. I'm so excited about that partnership, you guys. So as always, my name is Sajwa, and I am one of the Cooking Matters program coordinators. I'm also here today with Jordan. She's another one of the Cooking Matters program coordinators. And we've got our lovely volunteer, Julia. So a normal Cooking Matters class is a 2-hour nutrition-based cooking class, and we meet once a week. And usually we'll have a nutrition educator and a chef who work together, and they'll go through a recipe, we'll demonstrate the recipe, and then learn a lot of fun nutrition tips to go along with that recipe. So following along with that format, we're going to be doing that again today online. So before we get started with today's recipe, I would like to ask if you guys would take our survey for us. The survey is posted in the description box of this video, and I'll also go ahead and post that in the chat box of the video too in just a moment. But to take your survey, you are going to need the program code. And today's program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected is going to be E097932. And again, that's the program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected. If you have a couple of minutes after this video, please take that survey for us. It really helps us continue this work and continue to grow as we transition into a virtual format. So with that, I am going to go ahead and pass the mic on to Jordan and Julia and let them get you started with today's recipe.
All right, thank you so much, Sajwa. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So today we're going to be making another awesome recipe. We are making an eggplant rollatini. So if you haven't tried this recipe before, it reminds me of like a lasagna roll-up, but with eggplant. So it's very nice. It's a very versatile recipe, and we get some vegetables in there. So that's a really awesome part of this recipe. Julia, do you do anything with eggplants? Have you tried a recipe like this?
Well, I've never tried anything specifically like that. I have done like more of a traditional lasagna with eggplant instead of the noodles, but that takes a really long time. So I'm excited to see this one because I think it's going to be a little faster.
Yeah. So this is really nice because again, you can use eggplant, but with this recipe, you can use the regular lasagna noodles if you wanted. You could also use zucchini. So it's very versatile, whatever you have in the fridge. Every once in a while, you'll see some eggplants at the farmer's market. If you pick one up, you can make this recipe. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Our recipe today is by Karen R with cookinglight.com. So thank you, Karen, with Cooking Light. We are loving this recipe. So the first thing we always do before we get started with a recipe is, of course, wash our hands. So we're going to go 20 seconds, getting all the surfaces of our hands, singing ABCs or Happy Birthday twice. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and sanitize our station. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my view so you guys can see what I'm doing here. All right, so you'll see here, I do have my stations sanitized, so my countertops have been sanitized. I also have all of my stuff laid out. This is called mise en place. So this is just something you can do when you have a new recipe, you're not running around the fridge, or like Julia told us last week, if you're out of something, you don't realize halfway when you're done that you're out of it. So that's a really great way to start setting up your space. I also, part of mise en place is, of course, rinsing our vegetables. We are working with a fresh eggplant today, as well as a fresh onion. So make sure you're rinsing your vegetables as well. So with this recipe, I do want to point out a lot of the stuff in this recipe is divided. So for instance, like the marinara sauce on this recipe is divided. Some of the cheese is divided. So that just means they're using it in different places in the recipe. So it's a good idea to make sure that you know that and divide it ahead of time. So then you don't run out at the end when you need a little bit more of, let's say, mozzarella to sprinkle on the top. So the first step, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and preheat our oven to 400 degrees. I always forget this step, and I always tell you guys that. So we've got that done. Next, we're going to start working with our eggplant. So here is our eggplant. Before we start chopping, again, holding our knife the proper way, which is pinching the blade and wrapping our fingers around, just gets a little bit more power and it's a little bit safer. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to chop off the ends. And this is rolling around. But what we're going to do is kind of create a rectangle. So we're going to use our claw and just cut down the side here and create a flat surface. As flat as possible, at least. We're just going to continue to do that. And so we kind of created some nice flat surfaces here. I am going to take these off. Some recipes do ask you to leave them on if you want, but I like taking all of the skin off. It's a little bit denser, so it's not quite as nice to eat as the inside of the eggplant. But there's a lot of different awesome recipes out there with eggplant, so if you've never tried it before, I would encourage you to do so.
So Jordan, I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
Do you think we could save these eggplant peels for maybe our broth bags or something?
You know, I've never used eggplant peels in my broth bag. I don't think they have a whole lot of flavor to give, but I mean, you could definitely probably get some vitamins out of there. So if you like to boil them, you know, maybe throwing them in your broth bag. We will actually use some of our scraps here to chop up and put in our sauce. You can actually save them as well and put them in like a stir fry. I really like to do that. So you have a lot of different options, but yeah, if you wanted to give it a try and put them in your broth bag, give it a try and let us know how it goes. So now that we have our rectangle here, we're gonna slice this into thin slices, as thin as we can. So the recipe actually asks for a mandolin, which is just this nice thing that slices it for us. I don't have one of those, so I'm just gonna quickly try to create some thin slices. And the way I've done it before is using my claw, I'm just gonna slice down. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can try to go from the side as well. So I'll go ahead and try to get these nice thin slices here. So we're trying to get them as thin as possible, so then we can roll them up later on. We're trying to get roughly 10 slices out of our eggplant today.
So while you're working on that, Jordan, I just want to kind of make a little side note that this recipe is vegetarian. And if anybody has been watching for a while, they know that I'm vegetarian. So this is definitely something that I would enjoy. And, you know, a lot of people are kind of trying to go more that route. There is some evidence coming up now in like recent studies and things like that that are showing that plant-based can be really healthy, and that, you know, maybe meat isn't as important in the diet as we once thought that it was. There are a couple areas of the world that they call blue zones, and these areas have a high concentration of people who are over 100 and really low rates of some diseases like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, stuff like that. And so I have a list of those blue zones. That one of them is an island in Greece, another is an island in Italy, Okinawa, Japan, one city in California, Loma Linda, which is kind of secluded. It's not, you know, right next to LA or anything like that. And then a part of a peninsula in Costa Rica. And so in studying these areas, these blue zones, people have found what's in common between these areas is that the people there eat mostly plants. There's not, oh, say hi to my cat. She wants to get in on this. So people in those areas eat mostly plants and whole foods, not a lot of things that are really highly processed and not very much meat at all. Um, on average, people in those blue zones eat meat about 2 ounces at a time and about 5 times a month. So that's just over once a week having meat. And here in the US, our normal serving sizes of meat are about 4 ounces. And a lot of people eat that every day, if not multiple times a day. So there's this new push talking about, maybe if we reduce the amount of meat in our diet and kind of increase our whole food, plant-based food that we're eating, we might be able to get some of those benefits that these blue zone people have, where so many people live healthy lives up into their hundreds. So that is some super interesting stuff that, they're researching now.
Absolutely. Yes, so vegetables are very important that they're seeing there. So, this is a great recipe to add some more vegetables without, the animal protein. So, you may have noticed that I diced up some of my eggplant here. So these were just the slices that maybe weren't super, they were too thick, or I cut them kind of funny. So I just quickly diced them up, and we're gonna actually throw this in our sauce, so we're not wasting that. And again, hopefully we can use these in our broth bag, or find another use for them as like a stir fry. So now that we have all of these slices, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly, we're actually gonna bake these slices. So you may notice that some recipes will actually have you salt the eggplant. And the reason that you do that is to try to draw some of the water out of the eggplant. And I really love this recipe because it doesn't require you to do that. We're actually baking it instead. And we're ready to bake, it looks like. So, this just helps our eggplant kind of be a little bit more easy to work with, and then again drawing that water out. So I'm going to quickly throw these in the oven while we're working with our other stuff. This is going to take about 8 minutes or so. I forgot one important step, so I'm glad I remembered real quick. You also need to put another piece of tin foil on the top, somewhere you don't have any burning or anything like that.
Good catch.
Thanks. So next we're going to quickly chop up our onion. We're only going to need about half an onion today. And this we can definitely put in our broth bag. That'll add a lot of flavor to it. So I just chopped off one side, and then I cut off that fuzzy part again. And then I'm just going to chop right down the middle. And we'll save half of this for later for another recipe that I'll make next week. So I'm going to take off this paper if I can get it off of my onion. And we're just going to chop this onion up real quick. This is a strong onion, holy cow. Here we go. So we're going to go ahead and chop this way first. So I'll just go ahead and place my hand on the top and then just make a cut in and make sure it's a little bit smaller. So this is all we've done so far. Then we're going to use the lines on the onion to cut straight down. And we're just I like to make this into like a small dice. But if you wanted to make them a little bit bigger, if you wanted to taste that in your rollatini or your lasagna a little bit more, you can make that bigger. So we got to cut straight down, and then we're going to fan that out a little bit. And then we're going to cut down this way. And finish it up. And once you get to the end here, you can just lay it down. We'll just save that for later. So our next step is we're actually going to go ahead and make our sauce for the top. So this recipe starts on the stovetop here, and then we finish in the oven. So we're going to go ahead and saute the pieces that we sliced up earlier of eggplant, as well as the onion. So let's see, we did that. Let's go ahead and start this. So we're just gonna put this on like a medium-high heat. Make sure I'm going there. There we go. And then we're gonna add about a tablespoon of oil into this. I'm just using a canola, or excuse me, this is a grapeseed oil, but you can use a canola oil or an olive oil, whatever you have on hand. Make sure you guys can see that part. And then we're just gonna go ahead and add, so this is my onion and then the eggplant that I diced up earlier. Got lots of scraps for a broth bag today. And then we're just going to cook this until they're tender. It should only take a few minutes.
While that's going on, I'm gonna get back to talking about the plant-based food. So obviously, if you're used to eating meat, if you eat meat a lot, like I said, a lot of people eat it more than once a day even, you obviously aren't gonna want to change over to a whole food plant-based diet all at one time. That's not gonna work. It's not gonna be sustainable. You're gonna have to figure out ways that you can incorporate more foods like that if it's something that you're interested in doing, without going super crazy and not having it be something that you're going to be able to keep up on. So a couple of suggestions that I would have to try and get to a more plant-based style of eating would be to, first of all, kind of reduce the amount of processed food that you eat. And not processed food in general. Like I said, we're not going to go for it all at one time, but especially the processed meat, that's something that people in these blue zones I was talking about earlier really don't have much of. So that's, hot dogs, bologna, stuff like that. Stuff that is really highly processed. Chicken nuggets even would count as that. So maybe try, and if, again, this is something that you wanted to go for, try and reduce those foods. Another really easy way to do it would be to reduce the amount of meat that you eat at one time. Generally, a serving size of meat here is 3 or 4 ounces. So if you, cut that in half and see, fill up your plate with plants for the rest of it, so you've got more vegetables going on, get some more fruit, fill yourself up with things other than meat. And I know a lot of people think that us vegetarians are always hungry and we never have enough food. There's never anything to fill us up. And, I can say after 12 years of this, that's not true. I'm not always hungry. So it's definitely possible to reduce the amount of meat that you're eating, even without cutting it out all the way. And then again, one more thing that I would suggest if you want to try and get more to a plant-based style of eating would be try just 1 or 2 days a week of not eating meat at all. So this recipe would be fantastic for that. It is still really hearty and it's definitely going to fill you up without having any meat. So I know a lot of people do like a Meatless Monday. So why don't you go ahead and try something like that? It's pretty easy. You're only dedicating 1/7 of the week to doing that. And so that would be something that you could easily kind of work in and just see if it's something that you enjoy doing.
Absolutely, that's great advice. And Meatless Mondays are really great as well for your wallet. Meat tends to be a really expensive, part of our grocery budget. So the more you can decrease meat, the more money you're saving as well.
That's very true.
So I just quickly went ahead and, as I said, I sauteed the onions as well as the eggplant pieces, and then I added marinara sauce into it. And then I just warmed that up, and then we're just going to leave that on the side because, as I said, this is going to be like the topping for the top of our rollatini. So the next thing we're actually going to do, I'm going to take these out so they can cool down. We have to be able to work with our eggplant here. So make sure you take them out of the oven after about 5 to 8 minutes is all they should need. And they're pretty pliable, but they do need to, cool down a little bit because they are kind of hot. So while those are cooling down, we're going to make the filling. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add our mozzarella. And again, this is something that is divided. So we have a little bit of mozzarella here. I believe I have like 3/4 of a cup. And then we'll add 1/4 of a cup to the top of our rollatini. So I'm just going to add this in. We're going to add some garlic. I have some pre-minced garlic today. Unfortunately, I don't have any fresh right now. So I'm using about a teaspoon of garlic. Some ricotta. So this is about 1/2 cup of ricotta. I am actually having this recipe today. So I don't have so much rollatini that we can't eat it all. But we are adding 1/2 cup of part skim ricotta. So part skim just is has a little less calories. So we are using a part skim ricotta today. And then we are also using some frozen spinach. This is kind of nice because we have some shelf-stable spinach here. You may notice it kind of looks bunched up right now. You do need to thaw your spinach and then squeeze some of that water out so you don't have a lot of extra moisture. Because sometimes if you've ever made like a lasagna, sometimes it's just really runny. So, and then I added an egg, and our egg is going to make sure everything just kind of sticks together. So I'm going to go ahead and put this all together. This recipe does call for some fresh basil as well. You can use dried, of course. If you are going to use dried, just make sure that you are thinking about it's about a tablespoon of fresh which would be about a teaspoon of dried. So it is a different ratio, so just remember that. I am going to add just a little bit of basil into my mixture here. And then I'm going to add a little basil on top when we're all done. If you have fresh basil at home, I know this summer I had a lot of basil, but right now I don't have much anymore. We made too much pesto this summer.
I don't think there's such a thing as too much pesto.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good thing to save for the winter time. We like to do that. So we have our nice filling here. And that is ready to go. And we have our topping, and now we have kind of our noodles as well. So we're gonna go ahead and start building everything. I just have a nice little pan here. And we're actually gonna add about a little bit of marinara to the bottom. So as I told you, you are gonna have to divide some things. It's about 1/4 cup of marinara will go to the bottom of your pan. I am using just a jarred marinara today. So when you're looking for a jar of marinara, just please make sure that you're looking at a few different things. A lot of times marinara has a lot of sodium in it. If you can kind of compare and figure out which one has the least amount of sodium, that would be great. Sometimes they also have a little bit of sugar added to them as well. So that's something else to think about. So try to find a healthier marinara, maybe a low sodium one.
And just a quick plug here, you guys. Cooking Matters does actually have a really great tomato sauce recipe that I think could go well with this if you maybe prepared a little bit in advance. If you can keep that in your freezer and break it out whenever you need it, like a moment like this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that recipe in the chat for you all. And if you want to make that and, like I said, use that as a meal prep option, you certainly can.
Yes, that's a great point. We do have a good marinara recipe, or a tomato sauce recipe, so give that a try. Sometimes I have tried this recipe with my own sauce and it turns out amazing. So if you have a little extra time, maybe give that a try. So we're going to go ahead and add about 1 tablespoon to 1.5 tablespoons of filling to the thickest side of the eggplant, and then we're going to roll it up. So just roll it up just like that. And then with the seam side down, we're gonna just put that right in our pan. So that's important. Otherwise, your rollatini will just kind of like flop out and they won't, it won't be very pretty anymore.
Yeah, it'll be an unrollatini.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we'll just quickly plug away with this. So today with our recipe, we are using a part skim ricotta as well as a part skim mozzarella. So we've got some low-fat options in there. So if you would like to give those a try, that is a nice option to look for as well. I have also used fresh spinach in this as well. So you could definitely use some fresh spinach if you have it on hand. I actually sauteed the spinach and just kind of wilted it beforehand. But the frozen is a really nice option. I like to actually add frozen spinach to like my smoothies in the morning, because I feel like every time I buy fresh spinach, it always like, you know, it just doesn't stay very long with me. So I try to find some more shelf-stable options for my smoothies there. All right, and we're almost done here.
Speaking of add-ins to smoothies, I was just remembering I read that about adding zucchini to smoothies. If you're not a big fan of banana or like the banana flavor, you can add that and you'll get that nice texture and creaminess that a banana can add to your smoothie without the banana flavor if you're not a fan. And I thought that was really cool. I love ways that incorporate vegetables into smoothies and sneak them in to our food.
Absolutely. And you know, we were just talking about if you're vegetarian, you can actually add beans to your smoothie. So like a white bean. It's a little different, but it does create a little bit of protein for you, and it does kind of create a smoothie, a smoother flavor. So it's a little different. I would encourage you to try it once and see if you like it.
Huh. I never thought about doing that.
Yeah. Some beans I don't think would work very well, but I've heard a white bean goes really well in there.
I think the white tea would be great.
Absolutely. All right, so now that we have that done, this is what they're gonna kind of look like all rolled up. And now we're just gonna go ahead and add our topping that we made earlier. So, there we go. Try to keep up with dishes here. I just keep using the same spatula because it's all going to the same place, so.
Sure.
Saving on dishes. We're just gonna top this all. Just kind of smooth it out there. I'm gonna add a little bit of basil to the top and then roughly 1/4 cup of mozzarella to the top of this. Let's add a little bit of basil for a little more flavor here. If you don't have basil, I have used some Italian seasoning in the past. I really love Italian seasoning because it's so versatile. So if I would definitely encourage you to have some of that on hand because you can use it in so many different recipes.
I think oregano would work really well here too.
Oh, absolutely. And then top with some cheese. Now I have added other vegetables to this recipe in the past. I love adding mushrooms to this. I'll chop up some mushrooms really fine, throw that in there. A little bit more spinach. I love spinach, so so that's what we have right now. What you're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna bake this for about roughly 45 minutes. And then we'll take the foil off and bake it for another 10. So I do want to remind everyone, we've given you guys this tip in the past. If we are going to put some tin foil over the top, it's almost like steaming it, but make sure you spray your tin foil so then the cheese doesn't stick to your tin foil. That is the worst. I hate it when I make my lasagnas and the cheese sticks to the top of my tin foil. And then just another reminder, when this is done baking, please open it away from you. So start like on a corner that's on the opposite side of you and open it that way. Steam is gonna rush out and every time I burn myself, so just be careful thinking about that. So we're gonna throw this in the oven for about 45 minutes. But of course I prepared an extra one for you guys, so you didn't have to wait with me for 45 minutes. I'm sure you would love to though. This pan is very well loved, so I apologize. But this is kind of what it's going to look like. It does look a lot like a lasagna in the end. But I've got my rolls down there, and I believe the serving size for this is 4 rolls per person.
Oh, wow.
So
That'll definitely fill you up.
Yeah, this is a great recipe. And you know, you can really pair it well with like a nice salad on the side if you want to add some more veggies. So that is our eggplant rollatini today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jordan, for demonstrating this recipe for us. Thank you, Julia, for all of the awesome nutrition education and fun nutrition facts that we learned along the way. And thank you to all of you guys who tuned in today, participated with us, engaged with us. We really appreciate you showing out for us. So yeah, that looks really, really good, Jordan. Before we let you guys go, I just want to do a quick reminder about our survey again. That is going to be in the description box of this video, as well as in the live chat. I can post that again. And then I have our survey code. Again, that's going to be E097932. And that's the program code for this week's episode of Cooking Connected. Thank you again to Karen R. with cookinglight.com for this recipe. And again, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.